What you just saw was a real life clip taken from Destiny 2 the game, and the build we're looking at is all about making lots of little green men. Let's get into it. Also, funky stuff? I can do that. Here's a quick build. Threaded Spectre, Winter Shroud, Snare Bomb, Dustfield Grenade, Gamblers, Faceted Dawn, Hope, Purpose, Protection, Ruin, Mending. Mod setup should look like this. For your super, I'd recommend Goldie or Silk Strike, but it doesn't have to be these, and your exotic armor is the class item with Spirit of Inmost Light and Coyote. You'll need a gun that can proc chill clip consistently too. That out of the way, here's my short sell. I think if you play this right, and that's really important, that you play it right, this will give you levels of safety higher than Certarachne. I know that's big fighting talk because Certarachne builds are some of the best Prismatic Hunter has, but once you get your loops down, understand how this build really plays, get your clones doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you, you'll realise this build has got some power behind it. I'll speed through the main abilities and I'll save the fragments for after, because this build is so much more about how you use it, rather than what you've just done. That said, these are the really important parts. Threaded Spectre, Winter Shroud, Spirit of Inmost Light and Coyote class item. These three come together in such a good way. Spirit of Inmost Light is the fuel for the engine of the build, and Coyote for an extra dodge charge lets us bank away that accessibility regen to be used later. Winter Shroud is going to slow anything near you on a dodge, and give you some DR for a few seconds when dodging. But the really impactful part is that when slowing enemies, you'll get 300% increased base class ability regen. That's the real reason we're running this. And Threaded Spectre, but I'll talk about that in a second. With that out of the way though, playing the build. The first thing you have got to understand here is Threaded Spectre. When you deal damage to this, it might as well be made of paper. It'll break so easily, but the moment an enemy tries to take this thing down, it goes from getting folded to becoming semi-bulletproof. Why this is important is that whenever you shatter an enemy, which will happen quite a lot in this build, that's considered you dealing self-damage and will instantly break your Spectre if said shattered enemy is standing near it. You need to avoid this like the plague. There's nothing worse than dodging, shattering an enemy, and then finding out the whole reason you're playing a dodge build in the first place has just turned into a couple of threatlings, and now you gotta fight for your life or spend another Spectre to get out. The perfect place for your Spectre is mid-range. Enemies will aggro towards it but be far enough away that their shots won't be consistently hitting them. Don't worry about not landing Winter Shroud, it doesn't matter. The trade-off for not slowing something is so worth it. Second best place for your Spectre, if you're playing aggressively, is just at the very edge of your slow field. Winter Shroud has a 9 meter radius, that's how far away you want your Spectre to be. You get the slow, you get the Spectre, but keep enemies far enough away that they won't immediately trigger the self-explosion mechanic, and it's also the right distance where they're still going to be shooting at it rather than just going in for a punch. And from here, you get into the real meat and potatoes of the build. Spectre's what'll keep you alive, and everything else now goes towards supporting that. In a roundabout way, we're keeping the thing alive that's keeping us alive by keeping it alive. And that's why we've got Snare Bomb and Duskfield. They are so good at protecting your Spectre. Smoke for Disorient and Duskfield for Slow and Freeze. But there's one really important thing to play around here, and it's tied to slow. One of the more underappreciated sides of this debuff is that slowed enemies are less accurate when shooting, which means in the build enemies are not only going to be shooting the wrong target, i.e. your Spectre, but as long as you're keeping stuff slowed, they're also going to be missing a load of their shots. This is one of two reasons why a good chill clip gun is needed. One for the accuracy hit, so stuff will miss your clones, but also for the Winter Shroud regen. And that's kind of the tech side of the build. Let's talk about your combo. Assuming you have everything charged, you can go like this. I'm coming in from post here, so I might sound a bit different, but as I was re-listening to myself, I realised that yes, whilst there is a spammy combo here where you can unload all your abilities in Snare Bomb, Dustfield, Dodge, Snare Bomb, Dodge, Snare Bomb, Transcend, Snare Bomb, Hellfire, it defeated the point of what the build's aiming to do, which is chaining clones together. Not necessarily back to back, but once one gets blown up or just disappears, having that second clone in your back pocket and being able to drop it straight away is what gives the build such great survivability, and this combo throws away that amazing strength of the build. Having 2 clones at once basically does the same job as what 1 clone can do. So you can do a combo here, but I wouldn't really recommend it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that and drop you back off from where I would have finished talking about the combo. And Transcendence in this build is also stupidly good. In most lights on Snare Bomb is always going to be getting 2 times empowered, and as long as an enemy is stood inside of the smoke, it'll keep on refreshing. So this, on top of the fact that when dealing damage with a grenade or melee in Transcendence, you get increased regen for the other ability, and both our Transcendence grenade and Snare Bomber damage over time, means they're almost always triggering that regen, which means you are putting out. Plus, Hellfire also has slow baked into it, meaning that Winter Shroud is also getting procced whilst that's going off, which just means that your abilities will zoom. And that's kind of all I've got to say about running the build. Now let's talk about the rest of what makes it up. First thing is supers, and I will say you've got a lot of choice, but I think there's 2 definitive best ones. Goldie's the first, and honestly, you want this for restoration from faceted purpose. That's pretty much it. That's the reason why I would run this super. Otherwise, I'd say Silk Strike. Not only does it work with Winter Shroud, meaning you've got Unstop Overload stun with your super, but it also refreshes all of your dodge charges when the super ends, meaning that combo loop I mentioned just before becomes much more accessible, as you'll always have double dodges ready, and this also means extra survivability coming out of the super, being able to just drop 2 clones straight away. And I mentioned it just a second ago, but your first fragment is faceted purpose. Really nice for your survivability, and this build also can make a decent amount of orbs from Reaper, so you'll have whatever your elemental buff is up quite often. Faceted Dawn and Hope are kind of a double package here. Dawn for Radiance is really nice, and you'll find that you'll be Radiant almost all of the time from how many smokes you throw. Then from Radiant, and also Purpose buffs with Faceted Hope, you'll get bonus class ability regen. Faceted Protection for a 15% damage resist when surrounded by enemies. You can switch this though if you plan on playing a bit more passively with the build. Then Faceted Ruin for increased radius on shatters and ignitions. And lastly, Faceted Mending for Cure on a grenade kill, in Cure ×2 while Transcendence. You'll only really see Mending go off during Transcendence, but we have Transcendence so often that I found this just added a great extra safety net for the build. For your guns here, they don't need to be any specific elements or any set archetype, but a chill clip gun is needed. I will always sing the praises of a chill clip Tenacious, Tintin, whatever you want to call it, being the best in slot here, but a good Riptide or something like that will work nicely too if you don't want to go through Iron Banner Hell. Just make sure it's chill clip. Outside of Duskfield and Winter Shroud itself, this is the other big way we're proccing that class ability regen. Otherwise, your gun selection is super flexible. Perks that play off class abilities like Slice or Strategist are nice, and your exotic is super flexible too. The whole gist of this is that it's flexible. Really just pick the guns that you want. For your mod setup, on your helmet you want double dynamo or siphon mods matching your weapons. This is really up to you though. Siphon gives less super energy, but you get more consistent purpose buffs. On the arms, you want to take triple focusing strike. On the chest, you want 1 charged up and then resist your reserve mods. On the legs, take stacks on stacks, 1 recuperation and 1 insulation. On the cloak, take double Reaper and 1 special ammo finisher. That priority is resilience, then mobility, then discipline. And you probably know the drill by now. If it's not episode Heresy Act 3, skip ahead. Otherwise, I will say the mods here are really affected by what guns you choose to run and what elements those guns are too. If you're not bothered about guns and element synergy, go with Defibrillating Blast, Limit Break, Dreadful Finisher, Gold from Lead. If you're using Strand, and especially if you're using Slice on your gun, Unraveling Orbs, Vile Weave, Disruptor Spike, Photonic Flare, Horde Shuttle, and to Shreds. This will give you a load of extra damage and a bunch of Sever, and also what's essentially just free Woven Mail. When I was playing with Strand guns, I'd typically run Goldie, as it'll give me that awesome combo of Restoration and Woven Mail, which when stacked up with your Spectres, makes you borderline untouchable. On the flip side, Void is the other element I'd recommend using this season, for the sole reason that Volatile Marksman when boosted gives 10% class ability when triggering a volatile detonation. Use and abuse this. I went out of my way to not show this in the footage because I want this video to be evergreen, but in your games, this makes that class ability spam so much more oppressive. Especially if you're using a gun like Velocity Baton, that class ability energy will just fly. Pair that up with boosted Malign Harvest, and now you're getting Void Overshields and Weaken 2, then just add in Void Flux, and it just gets stupid at that point. If you wanted to, you could even go Stasis Void Strand, and try to double dip into as many artifacts as possible. World's your oyster though, just go and try what you think you like the most. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and hope that this build takes you through some pretty challenging stuff. But otherwise, I'm on to making the next video, which dips its toes a bit more into the commentary side of things. Real as to cross reaction kind of stuff. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, but that's all from me. See ya.